Today we're tackling one of the biggest health challenges out there, obesity. But we're going to look at it from a totally different angle. A microscopic one. We're talking about the secret role your gut plays in all of this. We're always thinking about weight in terms of calories, exercise, all the usual stuff. But what if one of the most important clues to managing our weight was actually, living inside us? I'm talking about literally trillions of tiny organisms that make up this whole world inside our bodies, and they play a massive role in how we function. It's a wild idea, right? So let's set the stage. All right, to really get this, we first need to understand just how big the problem is. And for this, we're going to zoom in on Australia, where the numbers, well, they paint a pretty stark picture. Okay, get this. 2/3. Just let that number sink in for a second. It's so simple, but what does it actually mean? Well, it means that 2 out of every 3 adults in Australia are carrying more weight than is considered healthy. We're talking about roughly 13 million people. That is a massive public health figure, and it comes straight from the Australian Institute of Health and Welfare. And this didn't just happen overnight. If you look back, the rate has climbed pretty dramatically. From 56% back in the mid-90s, it shot up to 67% by 2018, and it's stayed around that very high level ever since. That's a huge jump in just one generation. So, how's Australia doing on the world stage? Well, when you compare it to other developed countries, Australia's rate is noticeably higher than the average. It's a global issue for sure, but it's particularly pronounced down under. And look, this is so much more than just numbers on a scale. The Australian Institute of Health and Welfare is crystal clear here. Being overweight is the second biggest contributor to disease and death, right after smoking. That's why figuring this out is so incredibly important. Okay, so we've seen the big picture problem. Now let's zoom way in. It's time to meet those tiny microscopic clues I mentioned before. Let's talk about your gut microbiome. Your gut microbiome is basically this bustling city of around 100 trillion bacteria, fungi, and other little microbes all living inside your intestines. I mean, it's so vast, there are probably more of their cells in you than your own human cells. And they're not just hanging out, they're active players in your health.
And in this massive community, there are two main groups that really stand out, firmicutes and Bacteroidetes. The easy way to think about it is this. The firmicutes are like energy harvesters. They are amazing at squeezing every last calorie out of your food. On the flip side, you've got Bacteroidetes, which you see more of in leaner people.
And this is where it gets really interesting. Scientists have spotted a pattern. Over and over again, in study after study, they find that people with obesity tend to have a higher ratio of those energy-harvesting firmicutes compared to the lean-associated Bacteroides. It's a huge clue that connects our inner world to our metabolism. So, okay, there's a connection, but how? I mean, how can these tiny little bacteria actually have any say in something as big as our body weight? Let's break it down. Turns out your gut microbiome is a master multitasker. It helps decide how many calories you actually pull from your food. It can send signals that influence how you store fat. The wrong balance can even cause this low-level inflammation that's tied to obesity. And, this is a big one, it can actually help control your appetite. And here is a perfect example of how that works. So you eat something with a lot of fiber, veggies, whole grains. Your body can't digest it, but your gut bacteria, they love it. They ferment that fiber, and in the process, they create these amazing things called short-chain fatty acids, or SCFAs. These SCFAs then get to work helping to trigger hormones that tell your brain, hey, we're good, you can stop eating now. Amazing, right? So the takeaway here is huge. We're not just eating for one, we're eating for trillions. And what we put on our plate can totally change the entire landscape of that community inside us. And you can really see the difference here. A typical Western diet, high in fat and sugar, low in fiber, tends to reduce the diversity of your gut bugs and help those energy-harvesting firmicutes thrive. But look at a high-fiber or Mediterranean diet, full of plants and healthy fats. It does the opposite. It boosts diversity and feeds the good bacteria that make those helpful SCFAs. And we can get even more strategic about this with things called prebiotics. Now, these aren't the bacteria themselves. They're the food for your good bacteria. Think of it like fertilizer for your inner garden. You find it in stuff like garlic, onions, and bananas. And then, of course, there are probiotics. So if prebiotics are the fertilizer, probiotics are like the seeds. These are the actual live, good bacteria. You get them from fermented foods like yogurt or from supplements, and the whole idea is to directly add more good guys to your gut community. So, what does this all mean when we put it together? Well, it completely reframes how we think about weight management. It's so much more than just calories in, calories out. Really, the big takeaway is this. Managing your weight is a deeply complex thing. It isn't just a battle of willpower. It's also the science of taking care of this vast, powerful ecosystem that's living right inside you. Which kind of leaves us with this final thought. As we learn more and more about the microbiome, maybe the future of our health is less about meticulously counting calories and more about becoming expert gardeners of our own inner worlds. It's a powerful idea and definitely something to chew on. Thanks for tuning in.
Click the subscribe button to stay updated with Vital Span Labs.